When Caleb added the player named Creamy Delight to his party, he felt nothing out of the ordinary. It was another unremarkable day in a long series of live streams. Caleb had been solo queuing for 2 hours, consistently earning the match MVP award for the losing team, a spectacular nosedive that had cost him 5 ranks. Finally, staring at 3 idle teammates in the spawn fountain, a rare bewilderment crossed his face, which had been frozen in impassivity all evening. His stream chat erupted in laughter, celebrating the sheer comedic failure of it all. He had grown accustomed to their teasing. He slowly screwed the cap back onto his insulated tumbler and contemplated the crimson streak of losses on his screen for another long moment. At last, he lifted his eyes to the camera and posed a question to the chat, asking if it was time for supper. Supper was his code for ending the stream. He would usually switch to a short broadcast of him eating when he was tired of the game, so the question was really a plea for permission to log off and rest. The chat responded with a sea of blue crying emojis. Caleb glanced at the clock. It was indeed still early. He sighed and offered a compromise, suggesting he could find someone for a duo queue. A cascade of enthusiastic agreement flooded the screen, so Caleb activated the party finder. 5 seconds later, a player called Creamy Delight joined the lobby. The avatar was a blue-eyed ragdoll cat, a classic calling card for a certain type of player. Caleb studied the name and icon for 3 seconds, tilted his head, and let out an almost imperceptible sigh. The chat, however, grew exceptionally animated. Messages flew by, people declaring they were suddenly wide awake now that a girl had joined, begging him not to kick her, and sarcastically remarking that he'd finally remembered the game had a duo mode. Weighing the odds of a win against the potential for stream entertainment, Caleb pragmatically chose the latter. He paused, then started the match. The game Caleb played was called Cuisine Clash, essentially a standard multiplayer battle arena about destroying the enemy's base. But unlike other game studios with their grand, epic lore, this one's core design was aggressively down-to-earth. Food. Where other games had heroes named Son of Perdition or Daughter of Redemption, Cuisine Clash had champions like Buffalo Chicken Wings and Meat Lovers Pizza. Even the in-game items were spatulas, whisks, and spice grinders. This often led to wonderfully absurd in-game voice comms, with players yelling things like Taco Supreme. If you don't gank top lane to help me with this key lime pie, I swear you have brain damage. Or, isn't that creme brulee hero so brain dead anyone with hands can play it? Caleb was a man of few words and a placid demeanor, but his skill was undeniable and his face was striking. He had been streaming for 3 or 4 years, accumulating a substantial following, placing him among the top creators on the Orbit platform. His technical prowess drew in a core audience, but his chiseled, impassive features had earned him a balanced demographic of fans. He'd played various games in his early days, but Cuisine Clash was the one that stuck. 2 years ago, the game had exploded in popularity, and Caleb had ridden the wave, cementing his position at the pinnacle of the platform's gaming section. He much preferred to play alone, but he understood that viewers craved interaction and entertainment. Over the past couple of years, he'd occasionally partied with random players or acquaintances to satisfy their desires. During the hero selection phase, Caleb pre-selected his signature jungler, Buffalo Chicken Wings. He was taking a sip of tea to soothe his throat when he looked up and saw a message from Creamy Delight. The player had typed out a formal greeting. Caleb raised an eyebrow, puzzled by the strange formality, but returned the courtesy. He typed back his own polite hello. The chat was dying of laughter, questioning if this was a game lobby or a diplomatic summit. They cooed over how sweet the girl seemed and urged their stoic streamer to engage in more conversation. Creamy Delight was in the last position to pick, which meant they were left with the support role. After a moment of consideration, Creamy Delight asked Caleb 1419 what kind of support he required. A mouthful of hot tea stalled in Caleb's throat. The way this person spoke was peculiar. Caleb frowned, unable to pinpoint exactly what was off, but it felt excessively polite, almost robotic, as if he were conversing with his phone's virtual assistant. Caleb glanced at the player's most used heroes, only to find the list was set to private. Unsure of what to do, he opted for a safe, simple choice. He concisely suggested Creme Brulee. Creme Brulee, the game's most straightforward support hero, was a basic healer. You just clicked on whatever lit up. Creamy Delight confirmed with an understood. Caleb watched as they locked in the hero and the game countdown began. He used the brief pause to drain the last of the tea from his tumbler. When he looked up again, he saw the chat volume had surged, a dense wall of laughing emojis filling the screen. Confused, he looked at the in-game chat box. Creamy Delight had offered some unsolicited analysis, noting that the Buffalo Chicken Wings hero was a dive-heavy character, whereas they themselves were a teamfight-oriented support. They concluded by expressing a hope that, in the future, he would be more mindful of synergy. Caleb stared. Then he watched, dumbfounded, as Creamy Delight swapped their healer spell for a stun. The match began, and Caleb felt a bit stunned himself. 2 more messages popped up from the support player. They informed him it was quite all right, and since he had wanted them to play this hero, they would oblige. Then came the final, baffling line. He needn't be so formal with them. Caleb was so taken aback by the sheer audacity of that last statement that he stood motionless in the spawn fountain for a full 3 seconds, phone in hand. The chat had completely lost it. They were howling about the be more mindful comment and the stun-wielding Creme Brulee, speculating that this player, with their cutesy name and avatar, must be some kind of master troll coming to lecture the pros. Some wondered if it was a fan, deliberately putting on an act for comedic effect. After years of streaming, Caleb had seen every type of player imaginable. He said nothing, simply moved the joystick, and vaulted out of the fountain. But as the game progressed, he started to realize something was wrong. The jungler was supposed to control the tempo of the entire match, but somehow the rhythm of this game was slowly being dictated by the cupcake-themed character trotting beside him. Caleb's playstyle was methodical. He preferred to farm and build a significant economic advantage before engaging in fights. In this game, the jungle monsters were sentient vegetables, pumpkins, carrots, and potatoes, a testament to the game's commitment to its theme. Caleb's usual path involved clearing his blue side jungle, hitting level 4 after taking out a pair of tomato minions, and then immediately heading top lane to ambush an opponent. But this Creamy Delight was a wild card. The Creme Brulee hero was designed as a small, frilly character who was supposed to hang back during team fights and provide healing. This player, however, was different. When Caleb was only level 3, they signaled for an attack. Without waiting to see if teammates would follow, they brandished their whisk and charged at the first sign of life, landing a precise stun on the enemy's main damage dealer. Caleb had no choice but to follow up. His Buffalo Chicken Wings dove into the fray, and the 2 of them moved with an astonishing, unspoken coordination, securing a kill every time they engaged. Towards the end of the match, the enemy marksman was on the verge of a breakdown. The moment they saw the frilly support character, their first instinct was to use their escape ability and run. Creme Brulee simply twirled and used their own flash to follow, slapping them with another stun. Caleb's hero leisurely strolled up, tanked a tower shot, and finished the job with a single ultimate ability. A timely heal from Creme Brulee ensured they both escaped without a scratch. The chat was floored. They mourned for the enemy player who would surely be uninstalling the game. People questioned the viability of a stun-based Creme Brulee, wondering why their own attempts never yielded such results. Some pointed out the girl's skill, her decisive flashes, and Caleb's perfect follow-ups, reminding others that you needed both the hands and the right teammate. Finally, the enemy marksmen gave up and idled in their fountain, typing in all chat to ask the enemy support what they had ever done to them. Why, they demanded, did every stun have their name on it? Caleb was clearing a minion wave for the final push when he saw the little frilly hero stop for a moment. After a brief pause, they did a cute little spin and tossed a heal onto Caleb. Then came the reply. It wasn't personal. They were simply the most optimal target. Caleb glanced at the chat log. He didn't say a word, but a small smile played on his lips. The chat, however, noticed everything. A few viewers started spamming suggestive emotes, while others cautioned against starting drama, lest their streamer get annoyed. Caleb paid them no mind. The game had been a swift, satisfying victory, a visual treat for his audience. The chat was now a blur of messages, all urging him to add Creamy Delight as a friend and continue the duo queue. For once, Caleb hesitated. But after a moment of contemplation, he exited the lobby and turned back to the camera, announcing calmly that it was time for supper. The chat wailed in protest, but this time Caleb was firm. He was about to close the game when a small red notification appeared in the corner of his phone screen. It was a friend request from Creamy Delight. Caleb's finger paused. The moment he accepted, a message popped up, as if the other person had been waiting. It was another formal greeting, complete with a period at the end. The sheer, consistent strangeness of it almost made Caleb crack. Creamy Delight then thanked him for playing together that evening. They went on to explain that, for some reason, every team they had joined had kicked them without a word. Caleb thought it was rather obvious. With that name, that avatar, and a hidden hero pool, anyone would assume they were a troll. No one serious about ranking up would take that risk. Creamy Delight continued, remarking that his performance metrics were quite high and asking if they could play together again in the future. Caleb, the player with high performance metrics, fell silent. The player's skill was impressive, but their communication style was baffling. It was stilted, halting, and sprinkled with bizarrely formal or technical jargon that felt completely out of place. It was awkward and pretentious. Caleb had always presented a calm and collected front, but he was, at his core, socially avoidant and extremely reluctant to engage with strangers. He was also secretly quite picky. The platform had forced him into collaborations with female streamers from other sections before, and those experiences remained nightmares he preferred not to recall, though they were legendary black marks on his record that his fans loved to bring up. The mere tone of this player's messages gave him a headache. He felt their personalities were worlds apart. They would never get along. But his chat was a wall of yes, yes, yes. And one enthusiastic fan even launched a supernova, the platform's most expensive gift, with a forward message. Say yes to them. Caleb finally relented with a condition. He typed back that when they could compliment him using normal English, he would consider queuing with them again. Of course, he ate his words sooner than expected. The next day, Caleb streamed for an hour, calmly winning 2 ranks and then losing 2 ranks, achieving a state of perfect, frustrating equilibrium. He paused for a moment, then rose to brew a fresh cup of tea. Returning to his chair, he glanced at his friends list and his eyes immediately fell on the little cat avatar. His excuse, he told himself, was that he wanted to earn a title for his buffalo chicken wings hero this month. As his finger tapped the invite button, he calmly explained to his chat that jungling solo this season was notoriously difficult, a high-risk endeavor. The chat responded with a stream of taunts about him caving. Today, however, Creamy Delight seemed to have an attitude. Caleb waited patiently for a long while before the cat avatar finally reappeared in his party. Caleb asked if they were ready. After some hesitation, a slow okay came back. Caleb promptly started the game. The match went incredibly smoothly. This time, Creamy Delight silently picked Matcha Moose, a high-difficulty support with powerful crowd control, known as one of the best partners for buffalo chicken wings in the current meta. The player's skill was undeniable. Basic maneuvers like checking bushes for enemies were flawless, but their predictive stuns were what truly stood out, landing with perfect accuracy every time. With Caleb providing the finishing blows, they racked up kills effortlessly. The game was a breeze, and Caleb was genuinely enjoying himself. But something felt off. It was too quiet. The spiritual greetings and peculiar sentence structures from the previous day were gone. Their absence left an odd void, as if something essential were missing. If it weren't for the little green blob of a hero constantly at his side, helping him clear jungle camps and secure objectives, he might have thought he was playing alone. Even the audience began to notice. They speculated that Creamy Delight was upset, perhaps hurt by Caleb's blunt critique of their English the night before. Caleb himself felt a pang of unease. He reflected that while their way of speaking was bizarre, they had played 2 excellent games as his support. Maybe his final words had been a bit harsh for a girl. For all his quietness and social aversion, Caleb possessed a fundamental emotional intelligence. Feeling a bit guilty, he decided to break the silence, asking them what their main role was, support or mid. The reply was a single tertia. Caleb was now certain the girl was angry. He frowned, a flicker of annoyance rising at the thought of the trouble, but he decided to make one final concession. He told them to pick their hero first in the next game. He would fill whatever role was left. He received another one-word reply. The chat was convinced the little sister was definitely mad, comparing her monosyllabic responses to their own angry girlfriends. They reveled in Caleb's awkward, placating demeanor. Caleb felt he had done all he could. If this person wanted to play the silent game, he wasn't going to press the issue. He started another match. They played 4 more games in a row, winning every single one. Staring at the golden 5-game winning streak on his record, Caleb silently lifted the lid of his tumbler. He felt a little dazed. He asked his chat if this counted as being carried. The chat found this hilarious. Some suggested he reveal his identity as a famous streamer to see the girl's reaction. Caleb saw no point in it, but the demands grew louder, spurred on by a fresh wave of gifts. With a sigh, he began to type. He told them their skills were impressive. Then he added that he was actually a streamer. He guessed they would reply with an O or a K. He closed his Tumblr and watched the chat box, a rare spark of curiosity igniting within him. As a bonus for his viewers, he offered to give away 5 100 gift cards if his prediction was wrong. The other player was silent for 10 seconds. Then, a single exclamation mark appeared. Caleb blinked. He had miscalculated. He shook his head and told his chat to get ready for the giveaway. What a coincidence. I'm a streamer, too. A clear voice suddenly filled the air. It was a pleasant, youthful male voice, bright and crisp, though the cadence was a little slow. The last word was drawn out slightly, but the excitement in it was unmistakable. I'm on orbit. You? Caleb froze in a strange, rigid posture. That summer night would later be dubbed a Midsummer Night's Dream by his fans, becoming one of the most legendary events in his streaming career. The dramatic, dreamlike, and utterly absurd twists and turns of the next 2 hours were unforgettable. The first climax came the moment Creamy Delight spoke. Time seemed to stop. Then, the number of comments in Caleb's stream chat began to multiply at a terrifying rate. The entertainment value peaked instantly as a dense curtain of text obscured the image of Caleb, sitting soul-stricken in his gaming chair. There was a mix of joy and sorrow, laughter and lament. Some mourned the end of the creamy girl fantasy, while others whispered that, all things considered, the guy had a really nice voice. My channel number is 7891029. What's yours? The voice on the other end was oblivious to the chaos unfolding on Caleb's stream, continuing to chatter away. This is actually my first week as a streamer, but it seems like nobody is watching. Caleb's brain was struggling to catch up. He expressionlessly held his tea tumbler with one hand, his fingertips of the other tracing slow patterns on his keyboard. Then he did something unexpected. He opened the Orbit platform on his PC and typed in the channel number the boy had just given him. And so began the evening's second climax. The stream, titled Cream's Livestream, had a pitifully small audience, barely breaking triple digits. Caleb entered the room. 3 seconds later, as the webcam feed loaded in the bottom left corner of his screen, he found himself staring at a young man's face. He paused, then slowly, calmly, swallowed the warm tea in his mouth. His chat, on the other hand, exploded. People wondered if some pop star was secretly moonlighting as a streamer. One fan joked that their dog was drooling, only for another to retort that they shouldn't blame their own reactions on their pets. Another viewer, analyzing the lighting on the boy's face, concluded with horror that he probably wasn't even using a beauty filter, meaning his face was naturally that small and perfect. Years later, people would rewatch the recording and analyze Caleb's micro-expressions. They noted that while the entire chat was captivated by the beautiful boy's stunning appearance, Caleb's gaze remained steady and calm. He appeared composed, even taking another sip of tea. But only Caleb knew that in the first second he saw that face, he felt as if he had been bewitched. The boy's face was clean and beautiful, with vibrant red lips and fair skin. It was a strikingly vivid, youthful face. His features were delicate and his bone structure was impeccable. The boy was holding his phone, head tilted, looking at his screen with a troubled expression. He unmuted his mic again and mumbled, asking Caleb 1419 why he wasn't saying anything. Caleb let out a breath. He glanced at his own camera, then at his completely out-of-control chat. After a moment of deliberation, he began to type. He asked if the boy was American. The boy on the screen hesitated, biting his lower lip, and started typing back. He replied that he was half British and asked why. Then he asked if he could check out Caleb's stream too. This guy, he thought, is so weird. The boy put down his phone, looked up, and spoke with an air of indignation. This polite, well-mannered person from the game was now, in a turn of events, bad-mouthing Caleb, and most importantly, his entire tirade was being broadcast live to Caleb's hundreds of thousands of viewers. Caleb massaged his temples with a sense of weary resignation. This person, he didn't want me to speak formally, so today I tried really hard not to talk to him. The boy's amber eyes were clear and bright, though at that moment they were filled with frustration. Then he said he was a streamer, and I thought, oh, I met a colleague. But now he's ignoring me again, the boy said glumly. Caleb glanced at the trending icon next to his stream's title, then at his chat, which was on the verge of meltdown. He didn't say anything, but he didn't leave the boy's stream either. I don't want to talk to this Caleb 1419 anymore, the boy announced, his long eyelashes drooping in disappointment. He seemed genuinely upset, his words tumbling out faster. Even though his skills are really good, and he was the first person willing to queue with me, he's so arrogant. I don't want to play with people like that. I'm sorry, arrogant is... Caleb watched as the boy clapped a hand over his mouth in a panic, thinking hard for a moment before mumbling. It just means very mean. The boy seemed to cherish his handful of viewers. He paused, leaned closer to his camera, and looked up cautiously. "Is that okay?" he asked his audience. Caleb noted he seemed new to this, getting far too close to the camera, his face filling the entire frame. The proximity made his delicate features even clearer. As he lowered his eyes, Caleb watched his soft, long eyelashes flutter, looking as if they might brush against the screen. Caleb realized then that the boy's eyes were a light hazel. And then the boy's expression froze. At that exact moment, a massive wave of Caleb's viewers had migrated to his channel for a look. His viewer count was skyrocketing. The once empty stream room instantly flooded with tens of thousands of people. And the number was still climbing. The boy stared, wide-eyed and in disbelief, at the viewer count in the top left corner of his screen. He leaned back, bewildered. After a moment, Caleb watched him lift a hand and rub his eyes forcefully. Leo lowered his head, staring blankly at his phone screen. Caleb 1419, channel 14191419. I am indeed your colleague. I'm on orbit too. Caleb 1419. The correct word for what you meant is probably conceited or haughty. Caleb 1419. But I'm not a mean person. Good night. Caleb was eating oatmeal. Sean was having a meltdown. He explained that recordings of last night's stream were all over every forum, social media site, and video platform. Sean scrolled frantically through his phone, his voice trembling with excitement. He looked up at Caleb, who was calmly spooning oatmeal into his mouth, and felt a surge of exasperation. This is the kind of organic buzz we haven't seen in ages. How can you act like nothing happened? Caleb methodically picked a stray piece of fruit out of his bowl and said nothing. Last year, he had adopted a stray from his apartment complex, a sweet little white cat he named Daisy. Daisy trotted over, her tail swishing as she sniffed at the small pile of discarded fruit next to Caleb's bowl. She wrinkled her nose and sauntered away. I talked to someone at the platform. This kid has only been streaming for a week, so he's not under contract yet, Sean said thoughtfully. But with that face, the fact that he's a mix and all this hype, I think we can, Sean, Caleb said coolly. I don't want to. Sean's face contorted. He was the manager Orbit had assigned to Caleb, responsible for handling all the logistics of his streaming career. For the past 2 years, he had worked tirelessly, fussing over Caleb like a mother hen. Caleb's talent was top tier in the streaming world, but so was his stubbornness. He refused to participate in events or special collaborations, preferring to just go live every day with his insulated tumbler and play in self-imposed solitude. Sean sometimes suspected he had no interest in making money at all. Look, Caleb, I know you like your comfort zone, Sean sighed. But this is a fast-moving industry. New talent pops up every year. Can you really guarantee your popularity will stay at this level forever? He grew more impassioned. Look at old man Jerry next door. Sure, he's not as handsome or as skilled as you, and he's got a beer belly that rivals mine. But the guy knows how to create content, how to make things fun. His stream is always full of laughs. And to maintain his numbers, he even started a second channel where he has 3 pretty girls dancing after his main stream ends. Sean shook his head, lamenting, even I get sucked in watching that. His numbers are climbing and Caleb put down his spoon. For a second, Sean felt a little intimidated. Yes, your numbers have been solid these past few months, he quickly added, trying to soften his tone. But we have to look to the future, right? Your whole stoic thing is a brand, but even if you don't want new fans, without fresh content, your old viewers will get bored. They'll drift away. He leaned in. Do you want that? Caleb remained silent. Sean had learned how to handle him over the years. He knew that beneath the cold exterior, Caleb was soft-hearted and genuinely cared about his audience. He had already made significant changes to make his streams more viewer-friendly. He was just a little proud, not truly obstinate. Seeing Caleb's expression soften, Sean seized the opportunity to play the sympathy card. "I'm getting old," Sean said, dabbing at the corner of his eye. "I only have one dream in this life, and that's to see you win the Star of the Year award. Then I can finally settle down and get married in peace." The Star of the Year was Orbit's annual award for the best streamer. Last year, it had gone to a dancer who went viral for her uniquely abstract moves. It was a major recognition of a streamer's popularity. "I'm not asking the kid to be glued to your side every day. How about this? You two duo queue for an hour each day, and maybe do an in-person stream together once in a while for the fans," Sean proposed, thumping his chest. "The rest of the time, you can stream whatever you want. I won't bother you. Just give me the word, and I'll contact him right now." Caleb didn't respond. "And this kid," Sean continued, pointing at his phone screen, "he seems pretty harmless. Look who streams this early in the morning. He doesn't know anything. He looks innocent, not the type to scheme and leech off your fame." Caleb's hand, which was resting on Daisy's head, stilled. He gently squeezed the cat's soft ear, then finally reached out and took the phone from Sean. It was 9 in the morning, a dead time for live streaming when most viewers were at work. But the boy on the screen was bright and full of energy. With his chin resting on his hands, his face filled the camera as he blinked his large eyes and carefully read the comments aloud. "What did I eat this morning?" The boy repeated a question from the chat. Caleb watched as his eyelashes drooped. "I haven't had breakfast yet today," he said with a hint of sadness. "I'm in Portland, and I've really wanted to try the biscuits from this place, the Golden Biscuit." The boy paused, then added vaguely, "But they're a little expensive, so I haven't gotten to try them yet. Such a shame." Caleb, who had lived in Portland for over 20 years, froze. The Golden Biscuit was the city's most famous breakfast spot, renowned for its delicious and affordable buttermilk biscuits. They had even opened a branch just downstairs from his apartment. A biscuit that cost a few dollars was expensive? Caleb was perplexed. He couldn't imagine someone's financial situation being that dire in this day and age. Before he could process it, a brilliant flash of light streaked across the boy's screen. A supernova gift. The boy jumped, flinching like a startled animal, then looked utterly bewildered. "Thank you," he said, leaning in to examine the animation. He seemed stunned, muttering a string of English under his breath before asking with awe, "That's so pretty, but this supernova, does it cost money?" His naive, sheltered demeanor was heart-wrenching. The chat flew by as viewers eagerly explained the price of the gift. The boy was dumbfounded. "That's too much," he said, waving his hands frantically. "All of you, please don't send any more." He looked down, a faint blush creeping up his ears. "I looked last night. I know you're fans of that Caleb streamer. I really had no idea he was such a big deal. I thought he was just a small streamer like me." He urged them to save their money for Caleb. "Even though I don't really like him that much," he said with grave concern, "you're his fans. If he knew you abandoned him, he would be very sad." Here was a person who hesitated to buy himself a biscuit, who was floored by a single expensive gift. Yet his first thought was to worry that someone else might be sad, pushing away money that was being handed to him. Caleb said nothing, but he gave Daisy's soft cheek another gentle squeeze. The cat meowed softly and curled into a ball beside him. "But I'm so happy to have people to talk to," the boy said, his eyes curving into joyful crescents. Then, as if remembering something, the light in them dimmed. But tonight, I have something I need to do, so I probably can't stream." He leaned closer, his large hazel eyes blinking, their glistening light seeming to pierce through the screen and into Caleb's very soul. If you can still remember me, can you come chat with me tomorrow or the day after?" he asked. "Okay." Caleb paused, then looked away. It was the 19th day since Leo had run away from home, and he was miserable. He was miserable because he desperately wanted a biscuit from the Golden Biscuit. His hotel was located in the heart of downtown Portland, and the nearest branch of the famous shop was a 40-minute drive away. For 3 consecutive days, Leo had made the pilgrimage, only to return disappointed each time. The first day he arrived too late. They were sold out. The second day he waited in line for half an hour only to be told they had run out of dough. On the third day, Leo woke up at 6 in the morning and rushed over, only to find the shop closed for its weekly day off. Leo had never experienced such indignity. He stood on the sidewalk that day, staring at the closed storefront. Overcome with a grief so profound, he returned to his hotel's French restaurant and stress-ate 3 massive slices of Napoleon cake. Lying on his bed with a bloated stomach, his sorrow threatened to flood the room. A mix of homesickness and, more pressingly, the deep-seated resentment of being denied delicious food. The Golden Biscuit, being an old-fashioned establishment, had no delivery service. After 3 days of meticulous research on various review sites, Leo decided to solve the problem in the most straightforward way possible. That morning, the owner of the Golden Biscuit received a phone call. The moment the line connected, a clear, youthful voice came through, starting with a polite, formal greeting. "Hello," the young man said. "I was wondering, if I wanted to purchase your establishment, what would be the approximate cost?" Leo was given a number. In truth, the amount was trivial to him. But Leo reminded himself that he was currently in the midst of running away from home. He had to show some backbone. He didn't want to use his family's money anymore. Unlike the runaway heiresses in TV shows, Leo's parents hadn't frozen his accounts. In fact, they had gleefully transferred a large sum of money to him. His hotel room had been silently upgraded to the top-floor suite, and the bell peppers in his morning omelet had been replaced with his favorite mushrooms, a clear sign of his mother's intervention. This only fueled Leo's fury. He resolved to earn his own money. Leo's father was an American game company CEO. His mother, a British heiress from a long line of fashion magnates. They had fallen in love in college and later had Leo. At 17, Leo had already earned his first real paycheck. He had skipped a grade, been accepted into a top design school in London, and designed a few characters for a new game his father's company was developing. That game, he heard, had become quite popular in the States. He was told that his creme brulee and apple pie characters were fan favorites, a fact that had secretly thrilled him for a while. Leo had been raised in a gilded cage, coddled and protected. He was pure of heart and kind, always seeing the good in things, with boundless enthusiasm and patience for everything. But one day he had a major fight with his parents. That night, he was so angry and hurt that he cried until his eyes were too swollen to see. He curled up on his bed, clutching a photo from his nightstand. It was a picture of his grandfather holding a much smaller Leo. They were in a park in England by a lake. His grandfather was smiling, and Leo was holding a giant stick of cotton candy. His grandfather had been gone for many years, and Leo missed him terribly. So, at 20 years old, Leo made a decision. He ran away from home. He flew in a fit of pique to the United States, a country he hadn't visited in over a decade but had longed for. On his 7th day in America, Leo came down with a low-grade fever. He lay listlessly in his bed and, for the first time, opened the Orbit streaming platform. He wasn't initially looking to make money. He just saw how happy the streamers looked chatting with their viewers. He was envious. He suddenly wanted someone to talk to. He browsed the homepage and discovered that his family's game, Cuisine Clash, the one he'd worked on, was incredibly popular here. He bought an account, carefully chose a name he thought was cute and pleasant, and started his very first live stream. Leo had played plenty of similar games before. He was a quick study and picked up the mechanics easily. He had expected to have no viewers, but he couldn't understand why people kept kicking him from their parties the moment he joined, before he had even typed a single word. That night, he had finally found someone willing to play with him. Leo cherished his new friend. He played the support role, which he disliked, and tried to talk a lot to the player named Caleb1419. But this Caleb1419 person was very cool. He spoke very little. Although he invited Leo to play again the next day, Leo could sense that he was annoyed by his formal way of speaking, so he had kept quiet. Later, Leo discovered that this Caleb1419 was a massive, famous streamer. He had looked up the channel number that night, only to find the stream had already ended. He never saw his face, but he learned his name was Caleb and saw his follower count. It was a very, very long number. It's better not to play with him tonight, Leo thought dejectedly. Even though I'll be alone again, I can't keep riding his coattails. Making money is probably hard for him, too. His phone suddenly vibrated. Leo looked up, confused, and saw a new email. He rarely used email and assumed it was just a receipt or a bill. But when he opened it, he froze. Hello, Cream. I am the manager for the Orbit streamer Caleb. We find your streaming style to be very fresh and unique and would be interested in a potential collaboration. Would you be available to discuss this further? On Saturday, Caleb and Sean arrived at a trendy boba tea shop in the city center. A string of heart-shaped wind chimes hung from the milky white doorframe. As the two grown men stepped onto the soft pink carpet, Caleb murmured from behind Sean, "You're holding contract negotiations in a place like this?" Sean broke into a cold sweat. "It wasn't my choice," he whispered, wringing his hands. The kid picked it. Maybe it's a half-British thing? What could he do? Caleb didn't reply. He scanned the room, his gaze sweeping past groups of young girls taking selfies, finally landing on the only empty sofa in the corner. He stared at the pastel pink heart-shaped pillow on the seat, and his head began to throb. Caleb stood there silently, his face a wooden mask. Sean, feeling the awkwardness, said, "I'll go grab the seat. You get some drinks for him." Sean sighed and sat down. 5 minutes later, someone else walked in. The moment the boy stepped into the boba shop, Sean told himself that no matter what, he had to sign this kid today. Even if it meant he just sat next to Caleb silently like a beautiful vase during streams. Forget the stunning hazel eyes. The boy's innocent, clean aura alone, down to the soft ends of his hair, was enough to make an army of protective fans shower him with supernovas. Sean watched as the boy stood just inside the door, looking around dazedly. Just as he was about to pull out his phone, Sean quickly stood up and waved from across the room. "Over here." The boy's eyes met Sean's. He seemed to pause for a second, then nodded and walked over. "Hello," the boy said politely. "Hello," Sean started. "You must be Caleb," the boy said, taking a seat. He seemed to take a silent, deep breath before stating bluntly, "I'm Leo. Your manager sent me a lot of emails. Actually, The boy's expression went blank as he struggled with his words, getting tangled in his own syntax. A bright person does not speak dark words. No, dark words are not spoken by bright people. Sean tentatively prompted. An honest person doesn't mince words? The boy's ears turned red. The confrontational aura he had walked in with instantly deflated. For some reason, Sean felt like he was looking at a small animal trying to puff itself up to look intimidating. "I'm sorry, my English isn't very good," Leo mumbled, but he resolutely met Sean's eyes again. "But what I mean is, while you seem like a nice person, I don't think we're a good fit. So, I don't want to work with you. The thing is, and could you please," Leo said in a small voice, "tell your manager to stop sending me harassing emails." Sean, the sender of said harassing emails, was speechless. Leo watched Sean's expression carefully. Seeing his face grow stiff, he seemed to think he had spoken too harshly and immediately grew flustered. I don't dislike you," Leo stammered, his words becoming a jumble. "Please don't be sad. You've been having blood sugar issues, so I got you the sugar-free option." A slender, long-fingered hand holding a paper cup suddenly appeared in Leo's line of sight, placing a steaming cup of milk tea in front of Sean. Leo froze. He tilted his head up and met a pair of cool, detached eyes. The man's profile was sharp, with a high-bridged nose and deep-set, handsome features. His expression was impassive. He was a good-looking, somewhat aloof guy. The cool guy saw Leo and showed no surprise, simply nodding and saying hello. That voice. Leo was stunned. "I wasn't sure what you'd like," Caleb said, casually placing a pink, cold drink in front of Leo. "It's their signature. Give it a try." Leo whispered a small thanks. The three of them, clutching their drinks, finally settled into an awkward silence. Sean knew he could never rely on Caleb to initiate a conversation, so he turned his attention to the beautiful young man across from him. He found that the kid, contrary to his aggressive entrance, had suddenly gone completely silent. Leo held his drink, head down, taking small sips, occasionally stealing a timid glance at Caleb. Caleb looked back, a silent question in his eyes. Sean was sweating bullets. "Ahem, let's start over," he said. "I'm Sean and this is Caleb. I'm his official manager assigned by Orbit. So all those emails you received, they were from me." Leo blinked slowly. Caleb met his gaze and gave a polite, placid nod. It was only then that Leo realized he had been lecturing the wrong person. His ears instantly turned a shade of hot pink. He quickly ducked his head and took a long, noisy sip through his straw. "Leo," he mumbled. "You can also call me Neo. You look so young. Have you graduated from college yet?" Sean asked with a friendly smile. "We just wanted to chat with you in person today. You're both streamers on the same platform, and it was fate that you two ended up in a duo queue that night. I thought you two not only had great synergy in the game, but also created a fantastic dynamic on stream, so I think..." Leo immediately looked up, his eyes sharp with suspicion. The kid was certainly cautious. Having gone this far, Sean had no choice but to push on. He first laid out the benefits of signing with the platform and the gift revenue splits. Then, without any more beating around the bush, he directly stated his hope that Leo would collaborate with Caleb on streams. "Basically, we're hoping you can duo queue together every day. Just chat and have fun," Sean said smoothly. "You're both in the same city, so if you could do a joint in-person stream once or twice a week, that would be even better. The revenue from your joint streams would be split 50-50. It's a very fair deal." But Leo still looked skeptical. "But you're already a huge streamer," he said, tilting his head to study Caleb. He asked in a small, hesitant voice, "Why would you want to work with a nobody like me? Are you trying to take advantage of me?" Sean was at a loss for words. Caleb, however, remained unfazed. "I'm not good at small talk," he said concisely. "I need someone who is to keep the audience engaged. That way, viewers won't leave and I can have more fans and a more stable income." Sean nearly fainted. The logic was sound, but did he have to be so brutally honest? To his surprise, Leo seemed to respond well to the bluntness. The boy not only looked understanding but even made a sympathetic noise. Sean quickly cleared his throat. "This is a win-win situation for you, too," he said. "Countless new streamers grind for years and get nowhere. You help Caleb with engagement and solidifying his fanbase, and in return, he gives you a massive platform. Your starting point will be miles ahead of anyone else's. Once your popularity grows, the sponsorship deals will come rolling in." He smiled. "It's a no-lose situation for you, kiddo." "I am 21 years old," Leo said, annoyed. He wanted to add that he had no desire to be famous, nor did he need the money. Popularity meant nothing to him. He had only started streaming because he wanted someone to talk to. And this cool guy was handsome, sure. Leo stole another peek at Caleb's face. But his personality was so strange. He seemed cold and distant, a man of few words. And he had told him not to speak formally. Caleb was silent for a moment, then said, "Sean, if it's not going to work, let's just go." He added that he needed to get home to feed Daisy. Her appetite has been off lately. She's not even eating her kibble properly. I wanted to pick up some canned food for her on the way home. Sean's face twisted. What nonsense was this kid spouting? Daisy's appetite was bigger than his own. Her rear end was starting to rival the size of the monitor. And he called that a poor appetite? He was about to kick Caleb under the table and tell him to stop sabotaging the deal when he noticed that the previously disinterested young man across from them had suddenly sat bolt upright, staring intently at Caleb. Sean blinked. "Huh?" Caleb continued in a calm, measured tone, "And Sean, don't bring me biscuits from the Golden Biscuit for breakfast anymore. I'm tired of them. Let's switch to the bagels from the place next door." Sean was even more confused. Caleb's palate was notoriously plain. He always had his own oatmeal. Weren't all those biscuits ending up in his stomach? But when Sean looked back at the boy, he saw his eyes were wide, shining with a look of pure longing that was almost tangible. Leo stammered, You have a kitten?" "White, female," Caleb stated calmly. Leo pressed his lips together. And the Golden Biscuit is downstairs from my apartment," Caleb confirmed. Leo was in a state of profound shock. Sean finally caught on. "Well," he said, playing along, "if you're really not interested, we won't force you. Let's go." I have some conditions," Leo blurted out. "I'm not unwilling, I just have a few conditions." Caleb and Sean exchanged a silent, knowing glance. "Go on," Caleb said. "You said I would need to do an in-person stream with you twice a week," Leo said hesitantly. "Does that mean I have to come to your house?" "Yes," Caleb replied. "If I come to your house, can I pet the kitten?" Leo asked, his voice filled with hope. "Her head, her ears, her butt, and her tail, and you can." Leo's lips curved into a happy little smile. "And for those 2 days, you have to provide all 3 of my meals," he said. "I won't make unreasonable demands. It won't be expensive and..." "Done," Caleb said. Leo seemed to let out a breath of relief. "One last thing," he said, his gaze clear as he met Caleb's eyes. "Since this is our stream, I want us to look more like a team. If we're meeting twice a week, I want one of those days to be my turn to decide what we do on the stream." The boy's eyes crinkled, revealing 2 sharp little canines. "Deal, big brother?" Caleb and Sean stood outside the boba shop, watching Leo ride away on a bright yellow rental scooter. Sean had offered to call him a cab, but Leo had insisted on taking a shared scooter. They watched as the beautiful young man gave them a cheerful wave, fumbled with his phone to unlock the scooter, and finally wobbled off down the street on the slightly battered vehicle. "He's really frugal," Sean remarked. refusing a cab in this heat. And I noticed the shirt he was wearing was torn and frayed, but he was still wearing it. His family must not be well off. Caleb didn't argue. While Sean had been on the phone with the platform's legal team about the contract, Caleb had watched the boy across from him slurp down the entire cloyingly sweet drink, not leaving a single drop. He had even licked the foam off the lid. He looked as if he hadn't had a drink in ages. At the end, he had even carefully poked around the bottom of the cup with his straw, gave it a final shake, and only then, reluctantly, threw it away. Sean, Caleb said after a pause, "For the first couple of months, let's give him a 60-40 split on the gifts. He gets 60. Unaware of this, Leo slowly pedaled his way back to the hotel. So this was the famous shared scooter system he'd heard his American friends talk about. He marveled at it. He had finally gotten to experience it firsthand. It really was convenient. The unlock was fast, payment was easy, and even the color of the scooter was cute. However, there was no designated parking spot at the hotel entrance, so Leo ended up awkwardly handing the scooter over to the doorman. He returned to his room and immediately changed his clothes. He had been determined to refuse the offer today. To make himself look more intimidating, he had borrowed an outfit from his musician cousin, Andy. Andy was fully British, and Leo loved chatting with him because it gave him the illusion that his own English wasn't actually that bad. Leo had been hesitant, looking at the tattered clothes. "Will this really work?" he had asked. "Totally, trust me," Andy had said proudly. "I borrowed this from the rapper in my group. Super cool." Leo had worn it, though his last shred of aesthetic decency had prevented him from wearing the accompanying 3-pound chain necklace. Of course, the outfit had been useless in the end, because Leo was a complete pushover, susceptible to the slightest temptation. A kitten, fresh biscuits, a constant gaming companion, and even a salary on top of it all. Plus, the pink drink that cool guy had bought him was delicious. With his favorability meter shooting through the roof, Leo couldn't bring himself to say no. Sean had just added Leo on a messaging app. He went over the contract details again and then enthusiastically sent him Caleb's contact info. "You're new, so take it slow," Sean said. "If you have any questions about streaming, just ask Caleb. The guy's a bit quiet, but he's got a good heart. Don't be shy." Leo stared at Caleb's profile for a moment. The avatar was solid black. The ID was just the letter C. It was the epitome of cool. The image of that aloof, handsome face flashed through his mind again. He pressed his lips together and sent a friend request. Caleb was having his supper. His eating broadcasts were always a silent affair, a strict adherence to the principle of not speaking while eating, so he never interacted with his viewers. He would usually put on a show to watch while he ate so the chat wouldn't get too bored. Today, for example, he was watching an old detective show. On the screen, a shadowy figure plunged a knife into a victim's chest. Blood splattered. Caleb didn't even blink. He expressionlessly lifted a forkful of pasta to his mouth. The mood in his chat was complicated. One viewer confessed to being terrified. Another morbidly commented that this was truly an appetizing choice of entertainment and wondered how their streamer could even swallow. Others complained that the last game's teammate had been infuriating and that they missed creamy delight. Caleb finally finished his meal. "I think I've seen this episode," he announced suddenly, putting down his fork. "The killer is her sister. No need to watch the rest." He told them he was logging off for the day. Amidst a flurry of question marks and comments calling him an infuriating streamer, Caleb seemed to remember something and let out a small "oh." He mentioned casually that he would be collaborating with a new streamer in a couple of days. He told them not to get too excited, said his goodbyes, and before the chat could react, he gave a wave and ended the broadcast. Streaming for 5 hours straight was exhausting. Caleb slumped in his chair for a while, rubbing his tired eyes. He finally picked up his phone and saw Leo's friend request. The avatar was still a kitten, though this one was a golden chinchilla instead of a ragdoll. Without hesitation, Caleb accepted the request, put his phone down, and went to the kitchen to wash his bowl. When he returned, drying his hands, he found several new messages from Leo. After the standard classic hello, there was a long list of questions about streaming that nearly made Caleb's head spin. At that moment, Leo was restlessly rolling around in his bed. Even though Sean had told him he could ask questions anytime, that didn't mean the cool guy himself was actually willing to chat. It might have just been polite words. Leo thought glumly, why couldn't I just control myself and not bother him? A few seconds later, his phone buzzed. Caleb had replied, "Your questions are a bit much for text. Can I send a voice message?" Leo's eyes lit up. He carefully typed back a single, "Need okay." He hugged his phone and waited for about a minute. A voice message appeared. "The mic I use is from this brand. As for the other equipment, I'll send you the store links later. You can compare them yourself." Caleb's voice was even-toned, but there was no trace of impatience in it. He just calmly and methodically explained everything, one point at a time. Leo listened, captivated. "Don't just copy other streamers. Find your own style. Meow." A faint cat's meow suddenly came from the other end. Leo then heard Caleb let out a low, stern command. "Daisy, drop it." Leo's heart skipped a beat. The kitten. The voice message ended abruptly. A moment later, another short message came through. "Sorry, give me 5 minutes." The tone of this message was different from the businesslike calm of the previous one. His voice was deeper, tinged with a hint of exasperation, which paradoxically made him sound more human. Leo felt a strange warmth creep up his ears. He replied with an okay, then paused, a smile spreading across his face that he couldn't suppress. I just want to hear the kitten's meow again," he told himself, trying to rationalize it. His fingers curled slightly, then descended, tapping the play button on the voice message one more time. "Daisy, this is a slipper," Caleb said, pinching the scruff of her neck and pointing to the plastic sandal on the floor. "You'll die if you eat this, understand?" Daisy struggled, meowing in protest. Her ears perked up as she glared defiantly at Caleb. Caleb sighed and let go. Daisy scurried away, turned her back to him, and settled down by the sofa. Caleb was exhausted. He had been out all morning and then streamed for 5 hours straight in the afternoon. His brain wasn't functioning at full capacity. He stared at Daisy's large, fluffy hindquarters for a long time before he suddenly remembered he had forgotten something. It's been 5 minutes, it's been 10 minutes. Going to bed. Good night. The 3 short messages on his phone screen gave Caleb a headache. The kid was naive and innocent, with a bit of a temper, his every emotion written plainly on his face. He seemed to have zero social experience. When he was happy, his joy was palpable. When he was upset, his displeasure was evident in every word. He was a complete child, and extremely easy to fool. Caleb had never dealt with someone like Leo before. He didn't know if Sean's choice was right or wrong, whether this collaboration would be a success or a disaster. He sighed, picked up his phone again, and sent a new voice message. He explained that there wasn't much more to say. Leo should just watch recordings of other streamers. Then, Caleb remembered the tattered, sack-like shirt Leo had worn that day. "Your appearance should be presentable," he suggested tactfully, not wanting to hurt the boy's pride. He added, a little awkwardly, "Your clothes don't have to be expensive, just clean and neat. Something that looks comfortable to the viewers." Finally, After a moment's hesitation, he added one last, slightly stiff message. My cat was chewing on things earlier. I didn't mean to ghost you. Good night. Leo put down his phone. He hadn't been asleep, of course. He just felt that this person, who had said he'd be back in 5 minutes but made him wait for half an hour, had made him look too eager to chat. It was embarrassing, but secretly Leo was happy. Aside from a few hysterical emails from his family's old butler, Robinson, he hadn't had a proper conversation with anyone in a long time. He lay on his bed, happily kicking his legs, and listened to Caleb's final 2 voice messages. Then he froze. Clean and neat clothes, Leo had plenty of those. But clothes that weren't too expensive. That was a problem. A sense of urgency gripped him. He jumped out of bed, his bare feet sinking into the plush carpet, and ran to his walk-in closet. He frantically sifted through his clothes, tossing designer and haute couture garments onto the floor one by one. In the end, he couldn't find a single item that could be considered not too expensive. Leo stood in front of his wardrobe, utterly baffled. Caleb felt that Leo's understanding of clean and neat might be slightly skewed. He stared at the cheap, oversized t-shirt the boy was wearing, his eyes drawn to the goofy-looking cartoon turtle on the front. For the first time in his life, he was speechless, utterly at a loss. You do realize this is our first joint stream, right? Caleb finally said after a long silence. Millions of viewers, countless eyes, all watching us. The boy at his door looked confused. I know, Leo said. I followed all your instructions from the other day. I even bought a new shirt. See? This is Squirtle. He's my favorite Pokemon. He's very cute. Caleb's headache returned. He was truly helpless against this kind of guileless sincerity. He decided his advice had been wasted and that it wasn't his place to comment further on someone else's fashion choices. He opened the door wider and gestured for Leo to come in. Leo politely thanked him. After officially signing the contract, Leo had been secretly ecstatic for days. He felt he had made a bold and impulsive decision. Despite his excitement, he had taken Caleb's advice and hadn't streamed for the past 2 days. Instead, he had watched countless recordings of other streamers and learned a lot of professional streaming jargon. He had also logged into the game and bought every single cosmetic skin available in the store. He didn't feel the sting of the expense. After all, it was his family's game. It was just moving money from one pocket to another. Caleb's apartment was much as Leo had imagined. A clean, spacious place with simple, comfortable furniture and decor. Leo changed into the slippers Caleb provided. He walked timidly into the living room, feeling he should offer a compliment out of politeness. He told Caleb in a small voice that his home was very clean. Caleb glanced at him but didn't reply, turning and walking towards the kitchen. Leo hadn't expected a response anyway. He looked around curiously, originally searching for the kitten, but his attention was caught by a tall cabinet. Leo had many friends in design school who were collectors, but their collections usually consisted of things like antique wine or paintings. This was the first time he had ever seen someone collect insulated tumblers. Not enamelware or jewelry, but a cabinet filled to the brim with cups of all shapes and sizes. Insulated tumblers made up the majority, followed by mugs, a spectacular and imposing display. The cups on the top shelf are for guests. You can take any of them, Caleb said, his back to Leo, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. Don't touch the ones on the lower shelves. Leo paused, then turned his head, defending himself with a hint of annoyance. I wasn't touching anything. Caleb didn't comment. The atmosphere was subtly tense. Leo tilted his head back, carefully studying the options for a long time. Finally, he stood on his tiptoes and took a cute mug from the top shelf, cradling it in his arms. It was a new ceramic mug with a matching lid that had a pair of pointed cat ears on top. Leo padded over to Caleb in his slippers, holding the mug, and asked quietly where his kitten was. "She sleeps during the day. She's hiding," Caleb said, pulling a tea bag from a canister. "She'll come out when she wakes up." Leo let out a disappointed sound. He watched Caleb, then stared at the steam rising from the kettle for a moment before asking out of the blue, "Is it your turn or my turn today?" It took Caleb a second to realize he was talking about who would decide the theme for the stream. "Mine today, since it's the first time," Caleb said. "Your turn is the day after tomorrow." Leo seemed to agree with this arrangement and said okay. The water boiled. Just as Caleb was about to close the tea caddy, a hand darted out and grabbed a new tea bag. Leo held it to his nose to smell it, then met Caleb's gaze. He blinked innocently. "You said you'd provide my 3 meals." He reasoned that it was already afternoon, so he was already down 2 meals. Caleb's expression didn't change. He simply lowered his eyes and said, "As you wish." Leo enthusiastically mimicked Caleb, tearing open the tea bag and placing it in his cup. He carefully put the lid on and stood beside him excitedly, waiting for the water. As steam filled the small space, Caleb suddenly asked what promo code meant. Leo paused, then realized Caleb was testing him. "A promo code is for Orbit coins," he recited with perfect diction. "It's when a streamer asks viewers to use a code for a discount on Orbit coins. One code might be worth 10 coins, which is about $1, but there are sometimes discounts for web purchases." Caleb was silent. The water had boiled. He picked up the kettle and asked, "What about completing the weekly?" "Every streamer has a weekly goal," Leo said proudly. "It means the total value of gifts from viewers has to reach a certain amount, and after the goal is met, the streamer gets a platform bonus of, M." Caleb said nothing more, but Leo was on a roll. "Bosses, hit that little heart in the top right corner. Use up any leftover fireworks. If you think the streamer skills are good, drop some coin codes. Be generous, bosses." Leo recalled the phrases he had memorized over the weekend, mimicking the tone and cadence of other streamers. He struggled to recite, "Thank you, boss, for the big firework gift. What dance would you like to see?" Caleb had heard enough. "You've memorized it well," he said. "Of course," Leo said proudly. "Especially, but don't talk like that," Caleb interrupted. Leo froze. "What?" Caleb was half a head taller than Leo. When Leo looked up, he had a clear view of his profile. His features were deep-set, his jawline sharp, an undeniably handsome face. But the coolness in his eyes gave him a perpetually aloof, indifferent air. A normal person would likely soften at the sight of someone like Leo, but Caleb was different. He would still state his requirements without reservation. "Don't copy other people like that," Caleb repeated. "It's tacky." Leo blinked, confused. "Even though the ultimate goal is to make money, I don't want a cookie-cutter streamer sitting next to me begging for money online," Caleb said, taking the mug from Leo's hands. "Just be yourself. If someone gives a gift, thank them normally. If not, let it be." Leo was bewildered. "But if I don't ask for gifts, I'm popular and I'm not short on cash," Caleb said, pausing almost imperceptibly and turning his face away. "I can afford to pay your salary even if no one donates to you." He added curtly, "So you don't need to beg for gifts. Just be yourself." Leo blinked again. The green tea leaves swirled at the bottom of the cup, steeped in the hot water. The fragrance of tea filled the kitchen. Leo watched Caleb's profile for a moment. He noticed that although the cool guy's face remained as placid as ever, after he had spoken, His lips had tightened slightly, and his jaw clenched. The tips of his ears seemed to have a faint, almost imperceptible blush. It was a look of slight discomfort, as if he were embarrassed by what he had just said. Leo was stunned. After a moment, he tilted his head, revealing his 2 canine teeth again, and said with a bright smile, "I get it, moneybags." Caleb had been fully prepared for the stream to be an awkward disaster. After all, his personality was the polar opposite of Leo's. They had only known each other for a few days, and Leo was a complete newcomer. The chances of their first collaboration being a flop were high, but he never expected it to go so well. Caleb's streams ran like clockwork, from 5 in the evening until 11 or 12, never late, never running over. 1 table, 1 computer, 1 man, 1 insulated tumbler, a picture of discipline. So, when he publicly announced a collaboration, speculation ran rampant. Some said he was finally worried about losing viewers. Others claimed he was selling out for sponsorships. Still others insisted he was being forced by the platform to mentor a new talent. His fans had been on edge for days. Some worried he would team up with a busted dancer, while others feared a rookie would ruin the gameplay experience. The forums had been a battlefield. The moment the stream went live, all rumors were put to rest. Everyone stared at the hazel-eyed beauty sitting next to Caleb and felt a collective sense of relief. It was the kid with the weird English. They exclaimed that Caleb knew how to pick them. The chat celebrated, proclaiming that the combined visuals of these two had broken the ceiling of the gaming category. They spammed messages of approval. "Hello, everyone," Leo said shyly. The chat seemed to love his accent, mimicking his speech and filling the screen with a playful stream of greetings. "You all always say I'm boring," Caleb said, placing his tumbler on the desk and smoothly taking over. "So this time I brought someone talkative. Go give Creamy Delight's channel a follow. I'll owe you one." Leo stole a glance at Caleb. This person had just told him not to beg, yet here he was using his influence to help him gain followers. Leo felt a warmth creep up his ears. He lifted the lid of his mug and took a careful sip of the hot tea. The bitterness instantly made his face scrunch up. He covered his mouth and turned to Caleb in horror. Caleb met his gaze, calmly raised his own tumbler for a sip, and arched an eyebrow as if to say, "You're the one who insisted on having it." The chat was completely mystified by the silent exchange. They commented on the telepathic communication. "Let's get in the game," Caleb said nonchalantly. "We'll see how you perform today. There's a trial period for being my partner. The audience has to be satisfied before I'll let you stay on." Leo gasped. Caleb was just trying to tease him, but he hadn't realized how seriously the young man would take it. The moment they entered the game, Leo, being in the first position to pick, puffed out his cheeks, tapped the screen, and instantly selected buffalo chicken wings, the hero Caleb was about to choose. Then he locked it in. Caleb was speechless. Leo turned his face away, mimicking Caleb's cool demeanor. He pretended not to see Caleb stare and nonchalantly lifted his cup to take a sip of tea. Of course, the bitterness made his tongue go numb again, and he barely managed to swallow. The chat exploded. The entertainment had begun. They declared Creamy Delight a legend. They reveled in Caleb's frustrated expression as he was forced to play support, declaring the end of an era. Amidst the laughter, Caleb, in the last pick position, begrudgingly chose a crowd control support, and the game began. Many first-time streamer collaborations were painfully awkward, filled with silence or forced conversation. But Leo's complete lack of inhibition and natural charm greatly enhanced the stream's entertainment value. Caleb was secretly relieved. He had witnessed Leo's communication skills before, the jumbled mix of formal English and halting phrases, but that was all through text. Now, playing face-to-face for the first time, he was seeing just how talkative the boy could be. Leo walked up to a jungle pumpkin and muttered, "First, eat the pumpkin." He then moved to the potatoes and began strategically planning his next move. Then, get the taters. If top lane's position is bad, I'll go for the big dragon. Finally, he trotted up to Caleb and complained, "Support, you need to buy resistance boots." Caleb was on the verge of laughter. The chat was egging them on. "Caleb's a bad support," they teased. "This kid's English is killing me." Taters? Tomatoes? They noted that Creamy Delight played the jungle role quite well and that his hero pool was surprisingly deep, acknowledging that it must have been tough for him to play support for Caleb the other day. Leo seemed to be immune to embarrassment. After some initial shyness, he completely opened up, possessing a magical ability to talk his way out of any situation. Caleb would interject with a dry comment here and there, and their energies, surprisingly, complemented each other perfectly. For example, in one team fight, a low-health Leo was clearing a jungle camp. Caleb glanced at the camera and silently followed behind him, helping him attack. But just as Leo was about to land the final blow on the big pumpkin, Caleb suddenly dashed forward, landed a quick basic attack, and stole the buff for himself. Leo's buffalo chicken wings stood frozen for 2 seconds. Then, he furiously threw a skill shot, hitting the regal-looking lemon iced tea hero Caleb was playing. Leo was incensed. Why did you steal my buff?" he demanded. "I was helping you," Caleb said calmly. "You failed to secure it." Leo was heartbroken. "My skills were on cooldown. My energy bar was empty. How was I supposed to finish it that fast?" "You did it on purpose. I saw you timing your attack, Caleb readily admitted it. "Yes, I did it on purpose." Leo was stunned. The chat roared with laughter, calling Caleb petty and vengeful. They demanded he get Leo a new pumpkin or steal the enemy's buff for him. Caleb ignored them, calmly thanking viewers for gifts and continuing his stroll through the game map. The childish bickering, whether because of Leo's genuinely hurt expression or their fantastic chemistry, was incredibly entertaining to the audience. One viewer, overcome with protective feelings, sent a large gift with the message, "Don't be sad, little brother. Here's a rocket to buy you something nice." Caleb glanced at the notification and gently kicked Leo under the table. Leo looked up at the screen, confused. He realized he had been so engrossed in the game that he had completely forgotten to interact with the chat. It was Caleb who had been managing both. Leo pressed his lips together. "Thank you, Green Apple, for the gift," he said, blinking sincerely and racking his brain for a compliment. "You are very generous. You must be a very kind person who doesn't hold grudges." Caleb, who was neither generous nor kind about grudges, remained silent. This passive-aggressive jab was perfectly executed. The chat found it hilarious. But despite their bickering, their teamwork was impeccable. Over several games, they only lost 2. And because Leo chose his heroes based on his mood, Caleb was forced to play champions he rarely used, which was a refreshing change for his longtime viewers. They loved it and the gifts poured in. Before they knew it, without having had dinner, they had bickered their way to past 11 o'clock. Caleb checked the time and exited the game. The chat, realizing they were about to end the stream, begged for Leo to become a permanent fixture, even suggesting he replace Caleb entirely. The jokes were flying, but it was clear that everyone was thoroughly satisfied with the day's broadcast. Leo felt a small sense of pride. Caleb's expression was unreadable. He made no comment, just exchanged a few more pleasantries with the chat and ended the stream. The room fell silent. 5 hours of intense focus during the stream had left Leo exhausted. He had never realized playing games could be so draining. He sank into his chair, not wanting to move a finger. After a moment, he shifted slightly and looked up at Caleb, murmuring, "So tired." Leo felt he had performed well today. He blinked expectantly, hoping for a word of praise from Caleb, maybe a good job or you worked hard. But Caleb didn't reply. He just nodded, finished the tea in his tumbler, and stood up to leave the room. Leo was taken aback. He turned away, his eyelashes drooping, and let out a small, disappointed huff. What's with the cool guy act, he fumed internally. I did so well tonight, and he didn't even praise me. And his tea is so bitter, what's the difference between that and straight coffee? Suddenly, a heavy, soft, living creature landed in his lap. Leo yelped in surprise. He stared down at the ball of white fur and found himself looking into a pair of round, green eyes. "Meow," said Daisy. Leo was ecstatic. "The kitten you wanted," Caleb said, letting go and allowing Daisy's full, hefty weight to settle into Leo's lap. "Don't poke her stomach yet. She bites." Daisy sniffed Leo's fingers cautiously. Deciding she didn't dislike the scent, she shifted into a more comfortable position in his lap and began grooming herself. Caleb thought Leo looked like he was about to pass out from joy. She's warm," Leo stammered. "Her butt is so chubby and soft. And her tail is moving." Caleb deadpanned, "It would be a problem if she were cold." What's her name?" Leo asked. "Snowball? Fluffy? Or Daisy?" Caleb said. Leo, clearly perplexed by the rather plain name, repeated it with a question in his tone. Caleb repeated it, then added, without a change in expression, a complete fabrication. "It means a type of flower." "Oh," Leo said, as if he understood. He was so overjoyed to be holding the kitten that he couldn't find a free hand to pet her. He carefully lowered his head and gently rubbed the tip of his nose against the top of Daisy's fluffy head. The boy's eyes were shining with pure delight. Caleb found himself staring, momentarily lost in the sight. He quickly snapped out of it, cleared his throat to cover his tracks, and awkwardly left the room again. By the time Caleb had started the stove in the kitchen, Leo had followed him, holding his mug. "She ran away," Leo said sadly. "I just wanted to pet her ears. And she suddenly jumped off." "That's normal," Caleb said, adding noodles to a pot of boiling water. Leo paused, then tilted his head. "Thank you for letting me hold her. Daisy is very cute. I like her a lot." Caleb nodded and started chopping vegetables. Why isn't he talking again? Leo thought, a little frustrated. Was my performance okay today? Leo finally couldn't hold it in any longer and asked hopefully. "I saw a lot of big rockets and fireworks. Do they like me?" He then asked if he could be a permanent fixture. "You stole my hero," Caleb stated. Leo looked away, guilty. "You also kept forgetting to thank people for gifts," Caleb continued. "Not asking for gifts is one thing, but acknowledging the people who do give them, creating a connection. You don't have to dance or sing, but a simple thank you is important." Leo's spirits sank. He lowered his long eyelashes, his voice full of dejection. "I know, I got too caught up in the game. You're definitely more professional, more skilled than me. But your interaction with the audience was good," Caleb added nonchalantly, cracking an egg. "You kept the stream's atmosphere lively. It was commendable." Leo's head snapped up. His eyes lit up instantly, his eyelashes fluttering as he looked up at Caleb's face like a kindergartner waiting for a gold star from the teacher. "So, can I?" he asked. "You can be permanent," Caleb finished for him. He efficiently divided the noodle soup into 2 bowls and turned to leave the kitchen. "Wash your own mug and come eat." To Robinson, Please stop bombarding me with emails. I am fine. I just do not wish to reply to you. I still do not feel I did anything wrong, so until they apologize to me first, I will not be returning. The food in America is delicious. I have made many American friends on the internet. They are very funny. I even draw sometimes, though I forgot to bring my drawing tablet. I also met someone. He is like you, he also likes to drink very bitter tea. He has a kitten, but he does not talk much and has a very grumpy face. But he asked me to play games with him and let me pet his kitten. I even have an unexpected source of income now, so please do not worry about me. I hope you and Rebecca are well. Regards, Neo. Caleb was at the supermarket. Unlike most streamers whose schedules were nocturnal, Caleb maintained a remarkably regular routine. He streamed at the same time every day, never stayed up late, and always had his insulated tumbler of hot tea, a paragon of healthy living. He went swimming every Wednesday and Friday morning and did his grocery shopping for the week every Sunday at an organic market. He preferred to cook for himself and rarely ordered takeout. His fans often joked that he was living a retiree's life, but Caleb didn't mind. He was disciplined by nature and found comfort in an orderly life. He pushed his cart first to his favorite aisle, the cups. After a quick scan with no new tumblers catching his eye, he noticed a high-speed blender on sale next door. He considered that fall was approaching and that some fresh, hot soy milk would be nice. He put the blender in his cart, along with Daisy's canned food. After another lap, feeling there was nothing else he needed, he went to check out. The cashier scanned his items efficiently while cheerfully upselling. This is a new instant milk tea from a popular brand. Just buy one get one free right now. Would you like a box? Caleb glanced at the garish packaging. The picture on the front alone looked sickeningly sweet, but an image flashed in his mind. A boy with a scrunched-up face from the bitterness of tea, his large hazel eyes blinking, looking at him with a mix of shock and betrayal. I'll take one, Caleb said. It was just to avoid future trouble, he told himself. Otherwise, his own good tea would continue to be at risk. Back home, Caleb idly scrolled through his social media. Sean had been ecstatic after their stream last night, sending a barrage of messages about how everyone was buzzing about their collaboration. Whether it was praise for their looks or their chemistry, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Caleb was indifferent, but seeing the progress on his weekly donation goal, he did feel a sense of relief. He truly wasn't good at asking for gifts. Sean was right about one thing. The kid had a way of eliciting sympathy and was a natural at attracting donations. He was also a natural at eating. The memory of the two completely empty noodle bowls from the previous night still gave Caleb a strange feeling. Caleb had the day off from streaming, and the game was down for maintenance until 11 the next morning. He logged onto a secondary account and browsed through the Orbit platform, watching other gaming streams. He knew a few people in the community, both in the gaming and lifestyle sections. He usually found their streams entertaining, but today, for some reason, he just felt drowsy. He closed the streams, bored, and after a pause, typed in another channel number. It was a matter of professional courtesy, he told himself. Just checking in. Leo's channel had gained a massive number of followers in the last 2 days, approaching 300,000. An incredible achievement for a brand new streamer. Leo had been live for 40 minutes. The moment Caleb opened the stream, a deafening sound nearly shattered his eardrums, feeling as if it might lift the top of his head off. It was a strange, mournful, and piercingly loud sound from a string instrument, a direct assault on the soul. Caleb's brow furrowed. He looked closer and was left speechless. Leo was playing the violin. It was a real violin, and though his technique was amateurish and the sound was a screeching, gut-wrenching mess, The player himself had an expression of pure, blissful immersion. The chat was a flood of SOS, I'm having a seizure, and someone tell me when he's done. Fortunately, Leo soon finished, smiled shyly, and put the instrument down. The sound of this instrument is so magical. No wonder you all recommended it to me, Leo said, still savoring the experience. The technique is a bit like a cello. Let me check how to say cello in yes, cello. It's a bit like a cello. He blinked and finally noticed the screen full of teasing comments. I just borrowed this from a friend. That's why I'm not very good, he explained in a small voice. I used to love the cello, and I can play it, but for some reason I couldn't continue my lessons. Caleb watched as Leo seemed to drift off, lost in thought. A moment later, he pressed a finger to his lips, leaned closer to the screen, and whispered conspiratorially, "Don't tell anyone. But this is a special performance I'm preparing for him tomorrow. I want to give him a big surprise. You have to keep it a secret." Caleb, who had heard everything, thought to himself, a little too late for that. The chat played along, promising to keep quiet. Leo beamed, a mischievous smile on his face. He carefully put the violin away, picked up a half-eaten cup of yogurt, and started reading the chat while taking small bites. "I'm American, but I've lived in the UK since I was 5, Leo answered patiently. "I like to eat everything except I really hate garlic and frog legs. Yes. And I've been craving ice cream a lot lately." He glanced sadly off camera. "But I can't store any here because the fridge here is a bit special. It's small and the cooling isn't very good." Caleb was momentarily confused. The chat didn't seem to understand either. Leo seemed reluctant to elaborate and just vaguely glossed over the topic. "Thank you, user 9801, for the firework. You're very generous and kind, but there are some questions I won't answer, so please stop asking," Leo said seriously, his spoon still in his mouth. At his words, the questions in the chat did become more respectful. Someone asked why Caleb had chosen to collaborate with him instead of someone else. "Maybe because I talk a lot," Leo mused. "We both have our needs, I guess. Even though he's kinda my boss, I feel like we're more like partners. He's a nice person, it's just..." Leo lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "It would be even better if he could talk more and wasn't always so quiet." He perked up. "We're streaming together again tomorrow. Even though he's a little better at the game than me, I'm way more interesting. Besides the game and the violin performance, I've prepared a lot of other things, so you all have to come watch." "Unbelievable," Caleb thought dryly. "Yesterday, he was too intimidated to say anything to my face. But today he's already complaining about me to his own audience." On the screen, the boy was diligently scraping the bottom of his yogurt cup with a spoon. He finished, licked the spoon clean, and then proudly held up the empty cup for everyone to see. "All gone," he announced. The chat was a mix of emotions. They urged their cub to use the gift money to buy more yogurt, assuring him he didn't need to be so frugal. It was heartbreaking to watch. Others commented on how much he seemed to enjoy his food and wished he could teach Caleb how to eat without watching gruesome crime shows that scared off new viewers. Caleb exited the stream. Unlike Sean, he wasn't the type to pry into people's personal lives. He preferred to focus on his own life and not worry about others. But Leo's situation was a bit unusual. He couldn't afford a biscuit, his clothes were shabby, he ate every last crumb, insisted on riding a rental scooter in the blazing sun, and his fridge didn't even work properly. Caleb had already formed a general picture in his mind. 30 seconds later, Caleb re-entered Leo's stream. The boy on the screen was still as cheerful as ever. Caleb opened his inventory of virtual gifts, paused for a second, and sent the few remaining small items he had. Today, the cartoon on Leo's shirt was Pikachu, his second favorite Pokemon after Squirtle. To meet Caleb's not-too-expensive requirement, he had spent a long time carefully searching online and finally bought a shirt from an incredibly cheap store that happened to feature his favorite characters. As agreed with Caleb, today's stream theme was Leo's choice, and he had been looking forward to it for a long time. He carefully ironed his shirt and packed the violin he had borrowed from his cousin Andy, ready to give Caleb a huge surprise. He stood at Caleb's door, feeling cheerful, and knocked. But it was Sean who opened the door. His face lit up when he saw Leo. "Leo, good morning, good morning." For some reason, seeing Sean instead of Caleb, Leo felt a pang of disappointment. He lowered his gaze but still managed a polite, "Good morning, mister." Sean, who had just turned 30, felt his smile stiffen. Caleb's in the shower. You mentioned you wanted to try the golden biscuit, right?" he said, clearing his throat and pointing to the table. "I happened to buy some today. Come join me." "Thank you," Leo said, his face instantly brightening into a sweet smile. Sean felt his heart flutter, his soul nearly taking flight. He quickly waved it off, saying it was nothing. Leo sat at the dining table, taking small, blissful bites of the hot, crispy biscuit. He felt he might die of happiness. Daisy poked her head out curiously, jumped onto the table, and sniffed Leo's fingers. So, when Caleb walked out of the bathroom, toweling his hair dry, he saw Leo tentatively offering the last piece of his biscuit to Daisy's mouth, in an apparent attempt to poison her. "She can't eat that," Caleb said. "She has a sensitive stomach. She'll get diarrhea if she eats the wrong thing." Leo looked up, startled. He was used to seeing the cool guy dressed in his usual reserved, neat attire. Caleb, fresh from a shower, looked new and unfamiliar. A warm, humid aura seemed to cling to him. His damp hair was casually brushed forward, and though his eyes were still appraising, they seemed to hold a warmth that was usually absent, making him feel less distant. Leo guiltily pulled his hand back. "I'm sorry," he apologized meekly. "I just thought she looked like she wanted some." Caleb just shook his head. He dried his hair and sat down across from Leo, quietly starting on his oatmeal. Sean was on the phone in another room. Leo stared at the half-eaten biscuit in his hand, feeling dejected. He had made the atmosphere awkward again, he thought. Caleb finished his oatmeal. His gaze fell on a long, black case at the other end of the table. Leo, who had been secretly watching him, immediately perked up. "Guess what this is?" Leo said. "It's a musical instrument." It might have been Leo's imagination, but he thought Caleb's expression flickered for a moment. But when he blinked and looked again, the man's face was as placid as ever. It must have been his imagination. "A guitar?" Caleb finally asked. "Close," Leo said, looking triumphant, as if he had expected such a guess. He rested his chin on his hands and looked at Caleb expectantly. "But it's a classical instrument." "Guess again." Leo saw Caleb pause. "I can't guess," he said. "It's a violin," Leo announced gleefully, opening the case. "I prepared it specially for today's stream." "Didn't expect that, did you? Are you surprised?" But Caleb remained silent, which was not the reaction Leo had anticipated. "He's not surprised?" Leo thought, confused. "Why isn't he saying anything, just staring at me like that?" "Yes," Caleb finally said in a deep voice. "I didn't expect that. I'm very surprised." At 3 in the afternoon, Caleb started the stream. The title, chosen by Leo, was Ultimate Musical Duo. Looking at the title and Leo's determined profile, Caleb knew the boy was resolved to not let any of the viewers escape with their hearing intact. The viewers, clicking in with curiosity, saw Caleb and Leo sitting primly in front of the camera. Leo, cradling his violin, waved cheerfully. "Hello, everyone," he said. Caleb went straight for the jugular. "If you've got the guts," he said calmly, "don't leave once you're in." Most of the viewers hadn't seen Leo's solo stream yesterday and had no idea how surreal his violin skills were, so they were unfazed. One sympathetic female viewer even commented, "Play your heart out, little brother. We'll always be here to support you." "Thank you," Leo said, touched. And so, he held nothing back, launching into a deeply emotional rendition of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star that he had been preparing for a long time. The performance was a heart-wrenching, soul-shattering cacophony that left Caleb silently sipping his tea and the audience wailing in agony. Daisy pushed the door open, ran in, and started biting Caleb's pant leg, demanding he put a stop to Leo's dangerous behavior. Sean poked his head in from outside, a look of amused exasperation on his face, before scooping up Daisy and retreating. When the piece finally ended, Leo shyly asked Caleb how it was. "It was okay," Caleb said woodenly. "Great," Leo beamed. "I have another one prepared. It's my own original composition called..." The chat was in a state of pained ecstasy, a mix of laughter and pleas for help. Someone sent a large gift with the message, "It's really good, little brother. But can we please watch something else now?" Leo took this seriously. He thought for a moment and said, a little reluctantly, "Okay, I am a bit tired." He turned to Caleb and earnestly invited him, "Do you want to try the violin? It's fun." "No, thank you," Caleb said. Leo huffed. "Well, do you play any other instruments? Or sing or dance? Concert should be lively. You can't just sit there and do nothing." Caleb had been planning to coast through the day. He was about to say he couldn't do anything when his longtime fans in the chat suddenly came to life, flooding the screen. "Orbit's king of karaoke, Caleb, make your grand return. The last time Caleb sang was in the last millennium. We miss it. Sing for us." One pleaded. Another wrote, "My dog, who has been paralyzed for 2 years, just stood up when he heard you were going to sing and demanded I turn up the volume." Leo was stunned. "Are you really good at singing?" he asked, mesmerized. They all seemed so excited. Caleb's headache was back. "Why don't you play another song?" he suggested. "I'm suddenly in the mood to hear more. Let's sing then," Leo said excitedly. "I know an app that has karaoke tracks and can even score you." And so, Caleb was forced to sing a recently popular love song. The moment he sang the first line, Leo understood why the chat had gone into a frenzy. Caleb's singing voice was truly, incredibly good. But it wasn't just his technique that was captivating. It was the way he looked when he sang. The hardness in his eyes seemed to melt away in the music, as if, just as the lyrics described, he were deeply and passionately in love with someone. Leo couldn't even bring himself to blink. The chat was a wall of "so good" and "he's killing me," and gifts poured in. One fervent fan sent the platform's most expensive gift, a deluxe orbit spaceship with the message, "Caleb, if you sing one song a day, I'll send you one of these every day. I dare you to accept." A deluxe spaceship was worth over $200 and came with a server-wide announcement. The chat hailed the donor as a true boss. Caleb, a veteran streamer, was used to such displays. He simply gave a polite thank you, opened his tumbler, and took a sip of tea. Then he felt something was off. He turned his head and met Leo's gaze. Leo's eyelashes fluttered. He was staring, transfixed. After a moment, he blinked slowly. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Was he possessed? Leo finally snapped back to reality. "What's the name of that song?" he asked, seriously opening the Notes app on his phone. "I'm gonna practice the violin version when I get home tonight. We can do a duet next time." You can be sure that if you show up with that violin next time, you won't even make it through the door, Caleb thought. The ultimate musical feast concluded with Leo singing an English song. He had wanted to hear Caleb sing more, but Caleb had cleverly changed the subject, and the chat had started clamoring for Leo to sing instead. Leo's singing was much better than his violin playing. His voice was clear and youthful, with a slightly sweet quality that could soften any heart. After he finished, he turned to Caleb, his eyes shining. This time, Caleb didn't hold back his praise, giving an affirmative nod. The chat responded with a stream of good hear, expressing their satisfaction in their own unique way. They marveled at his perfect English, with some realizing it was likely his native language. They gushed over how good his voice was and how visually pleasing the two of them were sitting together. The chat started spamming perfect match. Though the stream had veered into territory Caleb couldn't quite comprehend, the overall atmosphere was excellent. He checked the time. It was dinner time. Since he couldn't cook today, he turned to the omnipotent food delivery app. "Folks, the concert is taking an intermission," he announced. "We're having a duo supper tonight. Any suggestions?" At the audience's suggestion, Caleb chose a standard Korean restaurant and ordered a soybean paste stew with rice. As for Leo, Caleb suspected he was trying to bankrupt him within the day. Leo chose a popular barbecue skewer place and, with a flick of his finger, ordered one of every single skewer on the menu, topping it off with a small Coke. Since Caleb had agreed to cover his meals, he had no choice but to pay. "Your soup looks so bland," Leo said smugly. "Doesn't look good at all. Look at the picture of mine. It looks so delicious." When the food arrived, Leo was dumbfounded. "Why is it so spicy?" he said, his eyes watering. "I could handle it on the meat, but why did they put chili powder on the grilled buns too?" Ahem. Cough. Caleb leisurely sipped his soup and gave Leo a nod, indicating he was on his own. Leo scraped the chili powder off his skewers and managed to choke down 2 of them, finishing his entire Coke in the process. He stared at the mountain of blood-red skewers in front of him and, for the first time, began to question his unwavering faith in Chinese cuisine. The chat was dying of laughter. They identified the restaurant, known for being both delicious and incredibly spicy. They guessed Leo had forgotten to ask for less spice and pointed out how red his face was. "The one drinking soup is secretly gloating, right?" they teased. "Give the kid a bite. I think his eyeballs are about to fall into Caleb's soup." 5 minutes later, Leo, holding a handful of skewers, slowly scooted over to Caleb. "Does anyone want some delicious skewers?" he asked nonchalantly. "There are 10 of them, all very tasty meat. I'm not greedy. I'll trade them for just a small bowl of soup and rice." "No one wants them," Caleb said. Leo pouted. A minute later, holding even more skewers, he shuffled closer again. "Does anyone want some delicious skewers?" he asked, blinking hopefully. "There are 15 of them, all very tasty meat, plus a grilled corn on the cob that I was saving. I'll trade them for just a small bowl of soup and rice." Caleb's feelings were complicated. If it had been Sean sitting across from him, he would have rejected the offer without a second thought. But it wasn't Sean. It was Leo, staring at him with wide, hopeful eyes. Leo's persistence was on the same level as Daisy's. When she wanted a can of food, she would pester you endlessly until you gave in. It wasn't that he was soft-hearted, Caleb told himself. It was because they were live and he didn't want to cause a scene. But Caleb was not one to let himself be taken advantage of. "I'll trade," Caleb said, putting down his chopsticks. "But it's all or nothing. Do you dare?" Leo froze. The situation was dire. All the skewers were coated in an insanely spicy powder. The 20 meat skewers were almost a total loss, and the buns were inedible. The only salvageable vegetables were 2 ears of corn. He had just offered one of them, which he thought was very generous, but Caleb was insatiable. He wanted everything. Leo was torn. But that soup looked so good. He could see scallops, vegetables, and tofu in it. All right, I won't take everything. I'll leave you 2 skewers that I don't want, Caleb said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Deal? Leo gritted his teeth and said yes. The chat watched, thoroughly entertained. The meal had turned into something resembling an illicit back-alley deal. They called Caleb a cunning businessman and laughed at how much Leo resembled a classmate from elementary school trying to trade for snacks. The deal was done. Leo took Caleb's soup and rice, and Caleb took Leo's mountain of skewers. Then Caleb sifted through them and handed 3 oddly shaped skewers back to Leo. Leo narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "What kind of meat is this?" he asked, examining them closely. He sniffed them cautiously. "It doesn't look like chicken or pork, and it smells weird. Can you give me something else?" "You're the one who said they were all delicious meat skewers," Caleb said. Leo was speechless. What he didn't notice was that the moment he held up those 3 skewers, the chat had exploded. People were guessing what they were, calling Caleb shameless, and eagerly anticipating Leo's reaction when he found out. Leo, oblivious, set the skewers aside for now. He ate the hot soup with rice, carefully scraping every last grain from the bottom of the bowl, and then closed his eyes in satisfaction. The spiciness in his mouth had subsided. Content, he turned to look at Caleb. The spice level that had brought Leo to tears seemed to have no effect on Caleb. He ate slowly and methodically, as if it were nothing more than a mild tickle. Leo was amazed.